Hello, my name is Karen Hayes, and I am going to do my needs assessment based on impoverished families. Now, based on the information that I've retrieved, what I know is that families are in great need of resources, self confidence, assistance, as well as financial guidance. Now, what I want to know is what ways the government will be willing to offer assistance while also boosting the economy and society's needs to be stable. What I'm trying to measure or determine is the extent of the system and at what point they would be able to extend to families, at what point they will be able to financially give to families, at what point would they be able to further grants or open other loan options and grant options for nonprofit organizations or personal businesses so that we can flourish and so that we can have businesses and organizations that do speak into the lives of our families. Now, how will I collect and record this information? Initially, it was going to be polls, taking polls of individuals who are affected by this, taking polls of individuals who have been without assistance due to their education, as well as getting data from government organizations and websites. So, the parties that are involved would be, of course, examiners, as well as outside participants, whether voluntarily or involuntarily. The method of receiving this information would be through surveys, questionnaires, and also some one-on-one contact and interaction with individuals and families. Now, for the training, it will be to further implement the requirements of supplying the government programs, supplying their certifications and schedules. Now, my reasoning for doing this is in the event that we would be able to have families turn in their school schedules, turn in their grade cards at the end of the semester, we'd have more successful families in this area, and we would actually have families striving to complete something, knowing that they have a goal. So right now, our government requires a school schedule, but there's no follow-up. Our government would like for families to be in some type of training program. They also require that some families meet a certain criteria as far as the number in the family, as well as how many participants, whether or not there's a father in the home, unfortunately. So there are a lot of barriers. There are a lot of things that put restrictions on families. This information is also time sensitive. So in the event that a person does not turn in documentation within a certain period of time, it's possible that they could be denied. Now, this is also, but not limited to, babies. So our families are greatly impacted by this. We have families that live in subsidized housing. We have families that live in homeless shelters. We have families that don't have any income, don't have family. Now, I believe that there's someone out there for everybody, but people undergo unforeseen circumstances. So at no point am I saying let's no longer extend this invitation or information to people, but I do want to know how that gap can be bridged between the government and this system in order to offset the imbalance of employment, the imbalance of educated citizens, the imbalance of the economy financially. So, doing this research, there are 9 categories that impact how a person receives their benefits. Those 9 categories are subsidized public employment, as well as subsidized private employment. Now, these 2 employers receive monetary compensation for families that receive TANF, SNAP, or food stamps, as you call it. So, in turn, although people are working, their food assistance, their cash assistance, their housing is being offset by this balance. So truthfully, people are only living paycheck to paycheck because their food assistance is only going to cover them for that month, which is fine. But people are only living paycheck to paycheck. They're not able to get ahead. They're not able to save money. They're not able to get an education. Now, another category is unsubsidized, which is total earned income. So this also is limited by the amount that you make. So in the event that you are receiving benefits, the employer that you have, which is an unsubsidized employer, they don't receive any type of compensation, and they don't receive a cut for what you're getting. So your balances are not solely, they're not offset by you working or being employed by an unsubsidized employer, but they are impacted. So the amount that you make does impact what you are able to get from the government. There's also childcare. In the event that you work for a childcare, you can get assistance. Now, let's be real. The reason why people are getting cash assistance and food stamps is because they have kids. So if you work at a childcare, again, you're not benefiting. You're not getting ahead because you're working to pretty much pay your childcare. When you're working there, of course, you get childcare assistance, but the cash that you would have to pay them is going to come right out of your check. So again, we don't have families being educated. This is not helping our society. This is not helping us. It's only benefiting the government. Again, you have vocational education. Now, the downside to this is that it's almost pointless. If you look at it realistic, it's pointless. Vocational education is certification programs, those medical billing coding, entry-level dentistry. Basically, all of these certifications are only going to get you an entry-level position. At the rate that the cost of living is rising now, you can't live off of that. So basically, you're telling me to go to vocational school and get a certification. I can get my assistance, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to be living paycheck to paycheck. I'm still going to be getting assistance because I'm not getting a pay raise. I'm not getting a quality education that will assure that I get a nice job and a nice pay for my family. Number 6 would be the community service. Now, granted, community service is nice. You are not being compensated for this. Community service does not get you a job that can pay your rent. Community service gives back to the community, which tells where your heart is. But when it comes to taking care of your family, being realistic about your children, walking around doing something for free doesn't put food in your kids' bellies or clothes on their backs. And considering you're only doing this to receive cash assistance, food assistance, what are you really doing? So again, you have the job search programs. You engage in the job search programs. Depending on your level of education, that's going to flop as well because it's only going to be entry-level information. It's only going to be an entry-level job. You have on-the-job experience and work experience. All of these things are nice, but at the end of the day, these 9 categories are the only ones that help you qualify for assistance with the government. Now, doing research is what I had to do to find out how our government could help, to find out what they're doing now, to find out who's really benefiting from this and who's actually being hurt by it. There were 100% of families that were unable to get food assistance or any type of government assistance while in school. This is for a 4-year degree program. 100% of those people that went to college as opposed to receiving benefits graduated with a bachelor's degree. Now, this says that they were not afforded the opportunity to get food assistance, cash assistance, subsidized housing. They were not allowed that much. This was in the state of New York. They were not allowed that much, but they were able to get their bachelor's degree, which means that during those 4 years, there was a lot of sacrifice because childcare wasn't being paid for. Who knows where food was coming from? And you also have, housing. So most likely, these same people were also working full time at a job most likely paying not much more than minimum wage. Again, you have 81% of people that receive an associate's degree that also were not afforded the opportunity to get government assistance. Now, education based on the Welfare Act of 1966 does not count as work. So, considering that much, if you go into the welfare office, ODJFS, whatever you call it, you go in saying, I go to school. They're going to say that does not qualify. They're going to ask you to go to subsidized, unsubsidized housing, private, public employment, go work at a child care, get in vocational school.